How do you feel about things Reagan did to help the economy?
Reagan's economic policies, such as a reduction in government spending and regulation and cuts in taxes, resulted in an unprecedented 92-month-long economic boom during his presidency, with expansion and growth in the GDP, employment, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average. But the federal debt increased over $1 trillion when his second term ended. In my opinion, the spending helped the economy enough that it was worth it.
How did Reagan impact your life?
Because of him, I got my first job out of college, and with his policies on taxes, I was able to buy my first house. I personally loved that.
How old were you and where were you in your life during his presidency?
Well, I was in high school when he became president, and when he left office, I was out of college looking for work. His policies allowed economic boom, employing millions of people, including me.
Why do you think people didn't like Reagan?
I think the reason people didn't like him is because of the Iran-Contra, where he sold weapons to Iran to ensure the release of U.S. intelligence agents. Also, he did very little to help the environment, saying trees cause more pollution than cars do. Finally, during his presidency, AIDS became a big scare, and by the time Reagan publicly addressed the issue, over 20,000 people died, which was considered too late by most.
How do you feel about Reagan's cuts on unemployment and food stamps?
I actually didn't think that it was a good idea to do that. I'm all in favor for cutting government funding, but that actually had some negative effects. It increased unemployment. Plus, at the time, we had plenty of money to spend on that program. We were in the middle of an economic upturn.
How are Reagan's policies so different from the other presidents?
I don't actually think that he was all that different than any other president. But one thing that was really different was that he was the only president to propose cutting taxes would increase the revenue from taxes, and it actually worked. Another thing is when he threatened to terminate the jobs of 13,000 airline traffic workers if they did not end the strike.
How do you feel about those firings of the PATCO employees?
I think what he did was great. People say that the president shouldn't get involved in business-related issues like that, and I agree. But what justified Reagan to do that was that those workers were in charge of air safety, and without their work, thousands of air travelers' lives were at risk. So for the safety of the whole nation, he did what he did.
What did Reagan do in the science program?
Reagan announced plans for what came to be the International Space Station. Reagan also announced that he planned to fund the building of the superconducting super collider, a particle accelerator used for high-energy physics research.
What was America's view towards Reagan?
People either loved him or hated him. People loved him for his economic boom, job creation, science advances, a health insurance program that helps people who lose their benefits from work. People didn't like him because he ignored AIDS, cut education funding, increased the gap between upper and lower class, and cut unemployment benefits.
What was Reagan's war on drugs like?
Reagan launched a war on drugs that helped reduce the high rate of casual drug use lingering from the 1970s. This decreased crime rates, helping society become better.
What was public reaction to the PATCO firing like, and how did you feel?
Most people were up in arms that the president got involved in this issue. They felt as though that wasn't right of him to do. But for the safety of our citizens, I think that what he did was the right thing to do.
How did you feel about Reagan's environmental efforts?
Reagan signed a bill designating more than 10 million acres of federal wilderness areas in states. This accounted for a large part of the national wilderness preservation system at the time. Reagan had signed more wilderness bills than any other president since the Wilderness Act was enacted.
What was Reagan's foreign policy like?
Reagan helped bring an end to the 46-year-old Cold War through a combination of hostile, anti-communist rhetoric and a massive arms buildup, followed by skillful diplomacy and disarmament. The Berlin Wall eventually fell, marking the end of communism in Germany.
What was an average day like for you with Reagan as president?
Every day, I was comfortable knowing that there was a good economy and that I had a sturdy job. Things were cheap and everything was good. I really enjoyed the economy during his presidency.
What do you think about Reagan's overall character, and what did you think about him as president? Did you like him?
Reagan's charm, geniality, and ability to connect with average citizens as well as world leaders earned him the nickname the Great Communicator. Through his speeches and actions, Reagan restored the confidence of the American public in the office of the president. Decades after he left office, Reagan's legacy remains strong, with admirers wanting to add his portrait to Mount Rushmore. I personally loved what he did for our country.